What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Pennell here, breaking down the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway, one of NASCAR's best tracks. And thankfully, because while last week was amazing for DFS, it was just the Penske parade, which is how we projected it. So that was awesome in that aspect. Plus, of course, Ryan Blaney grabbing the dub. But we have a phenomenal track, one where we've seen some really good finishes. We'll have multi-lane racing. Very good track. Cannot wait for it. Especially with this being the playoffs, we should be in for a treat. But anyway, happens to be your first time here, which I highly doubt at this point of the season, but if it may be. What's up? My name is Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Also NFL every single week. And so if you want to check out all the content for that, be my guest. And if you do end up enjoying today's video, do me a favor and leave a like down below. Scotch in for brand new. Let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Kansas. Typical 1.5 mile track strategy this weekend where you're pretty much looking at two dominators per lineup. Of course, we'll have to see how qualifying ends up going. So maybe we get a very obvious guy up front and everybody else in the back. That can change the strategy a bit. But assuming a normal qualifying grid, typically two DOMs is where you want to be. We have 267 laps this week, which equates to 186.9 dominator points. I know it's very specific, but we have so many tracks with 267 laps. It's just something you remember after a handful of years. And taking a look at our first figure this week, this will be the 7-race sample size in the next gen era at Kansas. And typically this has been a very good track for Toyota in general, but I mean, no surprise you're going to see the top two as Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. Also, Christopher Bell has ran pretty well here. We do have, I believe, a pole qualifying from him at one point. He was just able to run up front, so that's obviously going to boost his numbers up a bit, but it's happened, and it's happened for Kyle Larson, so it's nothing you can rule out. This has been a good track for Bell. Also, Alex Bowman, as you can see, has been very strong here, which he did run very well here early in the year. I remember taking down a 20 max with him, so no surprise to see him here. Ryan Blaney, as well, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Tyler Reddick a little bit lower than I would have expected, but I do think he'll be in for a strong run. Same for Bubba Wallace. 2311, and Bubba specifically, has had a lot of speed recently, but they really kind of sucked at New Hampshire, so let's hope they're selling out for Kansas this weekend. But yeah, it should be no surprise if who is strong here. It's just the typical Larson Hamlin with all of their other friends. And this figure is the intermediate style tracks we have been at this year that are somewhat similar to Kansas. So it's not looking at anything from 2024 or 2023, specifically this season. And William Byron, he has been the king of clean air. He typically qualifies the best. He runs up front and doesn't usually have to battle his way through traffic. So, I mean, clear cut, he's at the very top, which he's in general, he's always good at these style of tracks. I'm just saying that's why he's always so far ahead. Larson, Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, that should be no surprise. And then we kind of just have everybody in a big melting pot right there. Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott. I think that's Christopher Bell hiding Ross Chastain. They're all basically the same, but you can definitely see tier one's William Byron. But honestly, I would group in Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick in a similar tier. They just don't happen to be as consistent in qualifying. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown. We're doing one thing first. It's free video, guys. So let me know I plug and feed the dog. But if you enjoy the best NASCAR DFS community out there, plus NFL, which is in complete full swing as of right now, I did end up launching the website, which has all the data, tools, and projections that you guys have always grown accustomed to, and the data sheets, of course. So NASCAR has Cup, Trucks, and Xfinity all in one spot. We also have the NFL and MLB currently, unfortunately, which I'm not a big fan of NBA. That will be coming up in about a month. So if you want to come in and check that out, you can find the link down in the description or the pinned comment, or head over to cpenndfs.com and your first week will be free. All right, it is the next day and we are back, and it looks like based off qualifying, we have some bright red here, so it looks like we're going to have quite a bit of chalk in that aspect. But outside of those guys, it looks like most of the drivers that we anticipate to qualify up front happen to do so. But we do have, looks like Team Penske from 9K and above there with Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, and then a couple of guys in the 7K range. Now, I do apologize for no face cam, although some of you are probably cheering. And I am traveling. I am in Ohio right now. We had our baby shower today, so I don't know how the audio sounds on this, but better than nothing. So let's head over to practice here before we go too in depth. Now, I was not able to watch practice or qualifying, but I went back and sifted through all the data and numbers. I did see that we have a couple of guys that had some issues in practice, of course, with Ryan Blaney wrecking. I believe he only got 4 laps in, and Michael McDowell will also have to drop to the rear of the field and do a pass-through penalty to start the race. That's going to put him in a pretty big hole early on. But based off of practice here, if we look at the lap-by-lap data first, it looks like it's kind of mixed from A through B. So it doesn't look like anyone had a complete distinct advantage this weekend. Like I said, I wasn't able to watch, and I'll dig in just a little bit more. But typically, we see some weeks where all the drivers in Group A are at the very top of this list, but since it's a mixed bag, that makes me at least trust practice maybe a little bit more. So if we aren't going by groups here, Zane Smith at the top of the board. I'm not going to fully buy into that. He is a guy that I play for cheap because he just seems to be one of those few guys in the lower 6K or 5K range that can stick it into a top 15 somewhat routinely. Not something you expect, but Zane Smith is one of those guys that just ends up being near the top half of the field. It feels like more often than not. Now, whether he finishes there or not, that's a different story. But I think for a cheap play, when we talk about those guys, Zane Smith will definitely pop up quite a bit. The two big dogs, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, we talked about that when we were looking at our graphs earlier. They were at the top of the board for these style of tracks, Kansas Intermediates. And what do you know? Both in Group B and both two of the fastest cars in the field. I said 23-11. Looks like they'll probably be pretty strong. Specifically, Bubba Wallace, and what do you know? He's near the top of the board as well in Group B, which is where all the playoff drivers live at this point of the season. Eric Jones also looked like he had some pretty good speed. He was in Group A. AJ Allmendinger, Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe. If we want to sort these by groups, I actually don't think it's probably necessary because all the playoff drivers are going to be in Group B, and then Group A typically has the lesser valued drivers at this point of the season. So we will forego that. But let's look at the consecutive lap averages. So Zane Smith crushed it early. If we look at the 15 lap there, he drops all the way down to 19th. I am kind of curious if he ended up pitting beforehand. See, that's one of those things. If you guys look at consecutive lap averages, lap 11, that kills it. So it looks like he had a horrible 15 consecutive lap run. So that's not something I would trust. But either way, he did look pretty strong in his practice. But Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson definitely look like two of the cars to beat. I believe they both qualified in the top three. I think Kyle Larson was third. Denny Hamlin was second. So, I mean, go figure. It's Kansas. These guys tend to be 1-2 a lot. Eric Jones also looked very fast in the lap-by-lap data, and the consecutive lap averages look very good for him. Same with AJ Allmendinger, Bubba Wallace. 5, 10, 15 looks a little bit slower, but he was very fast in lap-by-lap data, so I'm curious if he had a similar thing to Zane Smith, where he ended up hitting in the middle of that, and he did not. He pit on lap 20, so we'll have to dive into that a tad more, but I still think Bubba Wallace should have. Or was that even the right one? I was not. I apologize. Looks like he pit on lap 5 there. I'm assuming that's when Ryan Blaney died because everyone's going to be on the same path there. And other than that, so yeah, that makes sense concerning that one. But yeah, I don't think there's really any big surprises from practice. I mean, we expect Hamlin to be good. We expect Larson to be good. Jones with the style of track, Bubba Wallace. So I don't really think there's anything crazy to take away from it. But let's go driver by driver and break this all down. We'll start with the 5-figure range first. We have William Byron, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Larson. Now, I'll tell you right now, Penske obviously did not have a good qualifying session. Ryan Blaney been to put into the wall, so we don't really have any practice data on him. But I will tell you right now, just doing the eyeball test, I ran preliminary projections because I am recording this video pretty late. And right now, it really likes Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney as a pairing up top. And if I had to guess in cash games and just an overall popularity for lineups, that is going to be the way most people go. Kyle Larson is very good at Kansas. He tends to dominate here. He tends to contend for the win. He was great in practice. And as you can see, 2 wins, 5 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and by far the most dominant points. And what I have noticed from Kyle Larson lately, when he doesn't qualify up front, it's just kind of hard for him to get up front and dominate. But he's going to be starting inside the top 5. He's going to have clean air most likely at some point. He's going to have track position. So I really like Larson as the top dom. Denny Hamlin would be my pivot off of Larson. I would definitely want exposure to both, but I do have a slight lean towards Kyle Larson. And if you are playing cash games, of course, you want to pair one of them with Ryan Blaney. He starts dead last basically and at these style of tracks. And just in general, Ryan Blaney has been a top 5 car almost everywhere we've gone this year, and he really only needs to get to roughly 12th place to get a 50-point threshold. So obviously I think Ryan Blaney can do potentially better than that, so I think that's most likely going to be our best route to go in cash games and in tournaments. If you want to play Larson and Hamlin together, you could do that. Just know your floor is not going to be nearly as high. And then for the second tier dominators, I would say Christopher Bell, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, even Chase Elliott if you want to lump them in, but trying to stick to these 10K drivers. Bell, Byron, they're okay, but I do think they're less likely to get up front and dominate over the guys we just talked about. Dropping down to the 9K drivers, Tyler Reddick, of course, is going to be a very similar play to William Byron. Both these guys are hybrid plays. They will make my lineups, but most likely not as often on DraftKings as it would for Denny Hamlin, Larson, because they can get those dominant points a bit easier. But on FanDuel, if you can get a P3, a P4 starting at 11th and 12th, that's a great price at 11, 5, and 12, and would just be overall really solid plays over there. So if you're playing William Byron, Tyler Reddick, I would more so do it on FanDuel than I would on DraftKings. Chase Briscoe, $9,500. He'll be starting in first. I would put him in that second tier dom, like a Christopher Bell. Like the tier 1 doms are Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. I would put Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell in that tier 2. Now he's going to have clean air to work with, and I have a hard time getting Chase Briscoe right. It just feels like some of these races, he's just not there. And some of these races where he starts first, he just sticks around all day. And it's not like Chase Briscoe's a bad driver. He's in a great car. We know what the 19 car is capable of doing. We've seen it for many, many years now. So I would not fade Chase Briscoe, but I will tell you right now, I will have more exposure to the likes of Larson and Hamlin up front. Joey Logano, you got to put him in that same group as Ryan Blaney, but he is much cheaper. But I do trust Blaney a lot more to be able to get closer to the front than I would Joey Logano personally. Logano will project okay, of course, starting in 35th at his price point, but he was not very impressive in practice at all. And if we look at the lap-by-lap data, I am kind of curious to where he ended up. I'm pretty sure it was near the bottom, kind of hanging out with J.J. Yaley there. And even compared to some of these Group B drivers, he's below Alex Bowman now here at the bottom, Chastain, Barry. So just a very poor showing from Joey Logano, poor qualifying session. If we're looking at the consecutive lap averages, 35th, 34th, 26th, 20th. So it's definitely a concern. I don't think he's going to be a 35th place car, but he might lack the upside at that premium price point. And at the same time, if I'm thinking of my builds right now, if I'm going Larson, Blaney, I don't know how much times I'm going to be able to get to Joey Logano at $9,200. So I might have to forego that and go with some of these tournament plays. Like a Chase Briscoe, if he dominates, he'll be a much better play than Joey Logano as long as he doesn't wreck at some point. Chase Elliott would be in the same category there. Now, I don't think Chase Elliott's going to project as well as Joey Logano just because you have to bake into the fact that, Chase Elliott could finish 15th and so could Joey Logano. And that's the case. I mean, Joey's the much better play. So, Joey's a fine cash play. But other than that, I feel like he'll be a driver that does show negative leverage based off of ownership versus optimal percentage. Dropping down to the 8K range, Bubba Wallace, I play him every single week. I am not sure what happened last weekend in New Hampshire. It's been a solid track for him. Just didn't really show up speed-wise, which was a darn shame because I feel like we nailed pretty much every other component of that race. We were all on Penske. Ryan Preece was good. Just very weird race from Bubba in 2311 in general, but I'm going to go right back to the well here. They tend to be very good at Kansas. Bubba Wallace is a winner here in the next-gen era at Kansas as well. Does have a win here, as you can see, 2 top 5s. Some overall pretty solid numbers. He was fast in practice. And when Bubba's fast in practice, it tends to show up during the race, so I think he's an excellent pivot off of potential Joey Logano chalk ownership. Ross Chastain, he did win this race last year, which when I look back, I was like, who won the fall Kansas race last year? And I was really shocked to see it was Ross Chastain. For me, I'm going to be more on Bubba Wallace for $200 more. There's some of the prices on FanDuel. Like, you can get the sum, Ross, but if I had to pick like in a single entry and I have the money for both, it's going to be Bubba for me. Josh Berry, $8,200. He'll be starting in 13th. I won the Kansas GPP earlier this year with Josh Berry in my build. I think he started dead last, though, so the situation is definitely a bit different. Starting in 13th here, he was great last weekend, even after getting wrecked. Ended up nearly winning the race. But I'm probably not going to have too much interest here, starting in 13th. I mean, speed-wise, Penske wasn't great overall. Now, I'm still going to play Blaney because he starts dead last, and it's Ryan Blaney. But I would have liked to see Team Penske have a little bit more speed. Chris Buescher's kind of in the dead spot, similar to Josh Berry. Although he did nearly win this, not this race specifically, but last year in the spring race at Kansas, Chris Buescher nearly won, although Kyle Larson did get him at the very end. I do think Buescher will be solid. He should be a borderline top 10 contender. I would put him in the tournament pool. I do like him more than Berry, probably a little bit more than Ross Chastain at the very least. But I still think Bubba Wallace is my favorite 8K driver. 7K range, Alex Bowman. I feel like we're going to be on him probably pretty heavy starting in 17th. He's in the 7K range. It's a Hendrick car, and he is awesome at Kansas. Looking at his numbers, average finish of 6.8 and a 7-race sample size. Or actually, it might be 6 for him because he had that back issue. 9.5 running position, which is, I believe, top 5, only behind Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson. It's slightly better than Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin, so he's in very good company there. One of the best driver ratings. 6 top 10s. So every race in the next gen era, he has been inside the top 10 with also 2 top 5s. So yeah, I'll take the Hendrick car at 7K. For looking at practice, wasn't anything impressive, obviously. 34th, 32nd, and 22nd. But I'm willing to look past that a little bit just because of the track history. But the practice data would be the only thing putting me behind. And if I remember in the practice results here, he's hanging out kind of with Joey Logano a little bit further up in Group B. But I will still get to Alex Bowman. He was pretty fast in the spring, which I realize he is the lone Hendrick car, not in the playoffs, so he's obviously not getting all the attention over there. But I still think there's a really good price point for him. Brad Keselowski at $7,700. He'll be starting in 31st. He's more of the cash play, definitely over Alex Bowman. Bowen's more of the tournament guy. But when you're starting this far back, you're Keselowski, pretty solid at Kansas. I mean, it's not like he's borderline elite by any means, but running position of 16th, average finish inside the top 20. Typically a top 15 guy at these style of tracks, so I would take that at $7,700 in cash. Kyle Busch, not bad at Kansas. I am concerned of how bad he just is these days, but I think he's a pretty similar play to Keselowski. Wasn't on him last week, starting in the back, but I definitely have more interest. And on FanDuel, he's only $6,500. I know we need a little bit more higher finishing position potential over there, but he's down to the price point where it really starts to become interesting. Ty Gibbs starting in 8th. I would put him as a similar play to Bubba Wallace, but I do respect the speed more from Bubba on a consistent basis. Plus, he's in the playoffs. Ty Gibbs is not, and maybe Ty Gibbs runs a little bit more timid this week after Denny Hamlin dumped him because he's just in his way at New Hampshire. And I mean, I like to see it. I thought it was great, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I know they said they had some words behind closed doors in the team meetings pretty much over the course of this week. Austin Cindric showing that Penske just once again really lacks some speed, which was kind of weird because Austin Cindric has had some pretty solid speed at the intermediates this year. 10 race sample size, running position of 14.5, pretty solid driver rating, basically in the top 20 nearly every single time. So a little weird to see, but I'm starting in 26. I mean, the floor is a lot better than Ty Gibbs. The floor is a lot better than Carson Hocevar. I wouldn't be surprised if he cracks some lineups. I could probably see him making my lineups a little bit more than maybe Kyle Busch, personally, but this isn't exactly an exciting range. I definitely think Keselowski probably still leads the way. 6K range, Ryan Preece, he finds himself in that perfect tournament spot where we like to play him every single time because he's always a top 10 contender. And he's just in that spot where it's not really going to lead to heavy ownership, especially when you have guys above him starting at 26th, 29th, and 31st. But Ryan Preece has been a top 10 machine this year. If looking at his numbers at intermediates, very solid. 15.5 average finish, running position at 15.2, 5 top 10s, 7 top 20s. So I would definitely have Preece on the short list for sure. Michael McDowell may have to fade, considering dropping to the rear, stopping, having to go through pit road at the beginning of the race. It's definitely going to be a bit of a concern there. And it's not like we're getting him starting 38th or anything. So starting 21st, that's basically an auto fade for me. AJ Allmendinger showed a lot of speed in practice. He'll be starting mid-pack. I think he's got to be in the player pool just because of that, but his numbers at Kansas aren't great. Numbers at intermediates this season have been respectable, basically right around where he starts. I definitely prefer him over Michael McDowell. He does have 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s this year, but I'm not going my way to play Allmendinger. Austin Dillon starting in 16th. Oddly pretty good here as far as being a top 15 contender, but he's kind of maxed out for where he's starting. I don't really see him cracking the top 10. Probably runs in that, I would say, 15 to 20 range today, which doesn't present too much upside. I actually think Eric Jones has a better chance of being a borderline top 5 contender here at Kansas. This has been a good track for him in his career. He'll be starting in 10th. I realize his equipment these days is not that great, but he did show a lot of speed in practice, and he could be one of those guys similar to Bubba Wallace at a much cheaper price point where you kind of hope he runs top 10, gets fast laps, and at $6,300, if he's a borderline top 12 car, you will take that. John Nemechek, his teammate, I think he'll be solid as far as finishing inside the top 20. I don't think he's going to have the same kind of speed as Eric Jones, just based off qualifying in practice. As you can see, Eric Jones absolutely crushed practice. John Nemechek struggled a little bit in the long run compared to Eric Jones, but you do get more PD with him. SVG, I will fade at ovals any single time. Noah Gragson on 14th. I don't think I can get there. Daniel Suarez is just a sitting duck at this point. Bad equipment. I mean, they have no reason to give him a good ride at this point since he's on his way out. So it's just been brutal for Suarez, $1,500. I remember paying $8,000, $9,000 for him at some point in the next gen era, depending on what track we were at. And now he's $5,800 starting in 30th, and it's like we have absolutely no interest in that. Ricky Stenhouse is starting a bit too far up for me. Zane Smith, based off the practice speeds and how cheap he is starting in 28th, I do think people will go there for just like salary relief. I could see him being fairly popular because looking at everybody else down below, I mean, Todd Gillen starting in 23rd, Haley in 22nd, Custer in 27th, and nobody typically wants to play Ty Dillon, Cody Ware, JJ Yaley. So I do think Zane Smith will pick up a decent amount of ownership just because of that, and I can kind of agree with that because there's really not much to like down there. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and if you didn't, make sure you like down below. Scratch it for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. But wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.